So thank you for everyone for joining us. Today we do, kind of what we call the Math Mastery Workshop and unlocking the problem solving skills. And we're so honored to invite our very own, the math magician, sometimes I call him. So Mr. Brian Meadows, and he will talk about the advanced math competition prep, especially for students. So for everyone who is on, especially you have your kids with you, please type in the chat and mention, how old are you, which grade are you in? I really appreciate it. So Mr. Brian would love to know which grade are you in and who is listening to his workshop today. And before we go on to the real content, I just want to share briefly, very, very briefly about pyramid. You probably, if you have been coming to our webinar or workshop, you probably see the slides many times, but I still want to go over very quick. So we have Mr. Peter and Mrs. Free Hong, so who was the co-founders and still the board director, but they were the past two principals. And now I kind of accepted the torch, since last fall. So my name is Jen Lee, and I'm the board director and the current principal. So Pyramid, as you guys know, and we established in 2015, and serves as a hub of academic excellence, offering specialized educational services and training to intellectual gifted children across the Great Chicago and North America. We are so honored to say, we definitely have the students all over the America, especially after pandemic. Before the pandemic, most of our classes are in person and hosted in Benedict. I know we still have some parents checking with me, are we able to offer face-to-face classes? I promise we are working on that, in the future, hopefully maybe next summer. But right now, mainly all of our classes are online, especially other than the speech class. So feel free, to learn more at me in the WeChat or, find our website, find my phone number so I can share with you regarding all the classes. Right now, we're still recruiting the spring session 2 classes, especially for one of the writing classes, and then Mr. Brian's, AMC 8 prep classes. Otherwise, we actually launching out, our summer program this week too. So feel free to check in and feel free to ask me questions about anything about the courses, which one to select, about our teachers' background, about our curriculum, about how we convey our online classes. A little different than the other school. I do believe our online classes are really well, prepared. Our teachers are very experienced teachers, and we always have many questions about the online classes. But to be honest, always everything has pro and con, right? But for me, I think, right now our online classes are really tailored our students and really has a dynamic to communicate with the kids really well. And especially like, what you will see in our today's, I call it an open class, but, workshop. So Mr. Brian will show his way of how to communicate with the students during the online classes. And I often share with parents, well, you guys will see how he used a new technology actually to teach in math. Actually, to me, I think it's somehow a little better than the one-on-one in person, because in person, unless you have a digital board, otherwise it's hard to look at the same board together. But our online classes, Mr. Brian used kind of a new technology. It's very easy for the kids kind of going along with him. So that's a part I'm so proud of. So that's a little bit about background about Pyramid, about our currently, online classes, our curriculum. You probably know since, I start to be the principal, I work on a lot about the curriculum, how to make the curriculum more standardized. So I know we have wonderful, wonderful teachers. A lot of parents told me there are many choices, options in the markets right now, but we choose Pyramid because the quality of the classes. I'm so happy to learn that. And I guarantee you, me, my team, and all the teachers will work even harder to make the curriculum actually in a good quality. And so I always welcome you to ask questions about us, okay? So regarding my own little background, I probably will pass, but the thing is I want to share with you, I do believe every child has its own talents. So the kids who are in today's workshop, remember this, okay? I have met many Asian kids, sometimes we are not kind of open or shy enough, like some, native, kind of Americans, but you guys are second generation, probably not like me, the first generation of immigrant. So you are a native speaker, but based on our, kind of Asian Americans, sometimes we are a little shy. So I do want you to be confident. I do want you, especially when you are at the, middle school age, I want you to really trying very hard to find your talents, find your passion. Okay, you see the second point, I say talents, passion, and career. So I always let the kids know, let the parents know, if we can combine the three, merge them into together, I think you will have a happy life. And that will be the third point, healthy, happy, and smart kids. That's what the pyramid wanted. That's me, myself, as an educator. I really put my heart on that. And very quick. So another thing, when I help my teachers to build the curriculum, I always want to remind the teachers and also want to remind parents who are doing the, kind of career path or academic path and planning for your kids. So I think NEA's 4Cs really, really make sense. I also have a little one who is seventh grader right now. So I always remind myself, to use these 4Cs to actually help my kids to grow. So the 4C means critical thinking, creative thinking. Think about this, okay? So critical thinking is a little different than the critical thinking, and then communication and collaborating. So communication, I think everybody knows you can communication, with speech, you can communicate with your papers, right? You can communicate, with a different style, with even arts, right? So if you have talents, seek about it. You don't have to be a great speaker. You don't have to be a great artist. There are so many ways that you can communicate, but I do, generally speaking, I want you to have a very, very good fundamental of communication, the writing, the reading, because those will be mainly the fundamentals, upon this C. And for critical thinking and the creative thinking, to me, I think math is the most foundation for that. But I will introduce other things, but this I want to emphasize. No one could see math is not the foundation of the critical thinking and creative thinking. And then communication, I think reading and writing. So don't think today's lesson is only about math. I think today's lesson is want to teach you how you can learn, you can gain the, what we call the 21st century learning skills. And then collaborating is another very important C. During my past 20 years in education, I saw lots of kids super smart, super sharp in many ways, but need a little bit, collaborating skills to work with others. So, especially in America, of course, we see Americans are more individualism, but I do believe the modern Americans are more, promoting the teamwork, promoting the services for the community. So I do want to encourage our, pyramid community, the parents, the students, the teachers, focusing on how to teach the collaborating skills to our students. And so thinking about, like I said, math is fundamental, but what else? What other parts I can find out my talents? So there are many different kinds of, tests right now, the little ones, the advanced elementary kids or advanced, so, and also the middle school students can participate. So in the math, we have kangaroo, MOEMS. I think Mr. Brian will talk about a little bit, and MathCounts. And then for the computers, we have the Excel classes. We even have the elementary Excel classes. There are no coding needed, but more like you have to understand the computer, logic, algorithm, the series, number series, like the number, like the math number series. So for the computer has a number series, has an algorithm that needs the kids to understand. So elementary Excel are really, really good. So if you like coding for yourself, and we're always joking in the future is the AI world, right? But the AI world, what can we do? What our kids need to learn? So to me, I think we need to have some fundamentals of math and computer science kind of skills to be able to really, grow as future leaders. So pay attention to that. Of course, we also have USACO, competition that is even more advanced. So, and then for robotic, that's something I also want to promote, for some kids who really, have a, way of how to be an engineer. You build your robotic and then you code your robotic and let your robotic to finish the missions. So those are very, very good experience. As I shared, my little one, 7th grade, so he has into the robotic, in last 2 years, and he has made huge progress. And to me, the way how FLL running, not just you do the missions with robotic, but you do the presentation, you do a great teamwork, which they call the core values. So the main core values is how do you work with your teammates to really fulfill the competition. So those are the great skills, like I shared the 4C. So please remember. And then the humanities. So humanities, I know probably you guys, some of the schools do have scholastic bowl, geography B, spelling B, science bowl, quiz bowl. So all the kind of things. So make sure you talk with your teacher, ask them around, but each school may offer different. Okay, mainly those are offered from the school kind of way. But the first one, scholastic art and writing a word, those are from individual. So those are fantastic. We sometimes, heard, even I think this last 2 weeks ago, we heard some great news from our last summer, the writing classes. So several students won the gold medal, silver medal. So those are super great. Those are the great, experience for them to learn, how to use the pen, to actually telling the story about our Asian Americans or, Americans. So whoever your ethnicity is, I think that's a great opportunity to share your thoughts, and keep, the whole world actually, be better. So those are the opportunities that you guys can grow. So again, these are the main one, but if you want to know more, you want to know the detail, kind of talk with me, WeChat me, message me, email me, okay? And then this is, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize that I have a Chinese slides for this one. But so these are if you want to have an academic planning, so you got to really make sure, probably we can't find so many hours, especially when you grow older. So most likely you will expanded your choices, activities when you were young at the, this stage, the lower stage is for elementary. And then when you come to the middle school, you probably want to be more focused. That's how normally we see do the reduce, okay, deduction at the middle school, because we cannot focus on everything. We have to focus on the talents, focus on our passion. And then when it's coming to the high school, I think it's a time for you to shine. It's a time for you to grow with your focus, and getting to a good college as you want it, right? So that's a part. My part is done. Sorry, I kind of want to save time for Ms. Brian, but still take about 15 minutes. So my job is done. So Mr. Brian, like I shared a little bit at beginning, so he's a great math educator. I know him for 5 years now, Brian. I can't remember, yeah. But many years, sounds like many years. We're great friends. And he's also the executive director of a Center for Future Innovators and the Pyramid, working with the CFI for the robotic program. So if you are interested in any robotic competition programs, feel free to contact me or contact Mr. Brian as well. And then with, you see the full range of the classes that he taught, almost everything about math. So, and he was, my gosh, he was the most, how can I use the word, Mr. Brian? I think he's the best, it's easy way, he's the best Beast Academy teacher I ever saw. Because the way he used, the comic way, he even draw a comic for himself and to match it with the monsters, how he actually kind of a puppet show the monsters to learning the math together with him to teach the kids. He helped me to teach many, Chinese students actually using English to learn the Beast Academy. That was fabulous years. So right now he's more focusing on the local American community. So his BA classes is fabulous. And then of course his other AOPS classes, and he will share more about that. But today I think he will mainly showcase how he teaches AMC8. My son has been in his classes starting from BA5 and the pre-algebra and the algebra. And right now they are in number theory. Oh, you missed accounting. Okay. And in number theory and also in the AMC8 classes. And he really, really enjoyed, working with Mr. Brian to learn math, the fun parts. Okay. So Mr. Brian, so I do have some slides about the classes, what books that we have, or maybe we can share, if the parents has questions about all the AOPS slides. But today, I think Mr. Brian will share more about this book, Competition Math for Middle School, how he will use this book to showcase or to drag our students to have the fun time learning math with him. So sorry about it, and here you are. You can go ahead, share your PowerPoint.
Thank you so much. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Mr. Brian. Thank you so much, Ms. Lee, for that wonderful introduction and telling us about some of the different programs going on. So we are going to go through today the method I use to solve problems in all of my art of problem solving classes, and how I solve math myself when I'm working. When I work for the projects I do for the city of Blue Island, where I'll oftentimes involve some of my higher level students, like building the mathematical model of the city of Blue Island. And I like to use the same method that I do professionally as I teach the students. And that's called the 3-read method. But first, let's take a look at some of the different competitions that are available for students in middle school. One of the big ones that we offer that is out there is called the MOEMS, which is the Mathematical Olympiad for Elementary and Middle School Students. This is a fantastic program you'll work through with your school. It's over 5 months. Every month, you get a new set of 5 questions, and you work on these with your team, with the rest of the kids in the school. You get pretty much locked into a room, and then you go through and solve the problems and send them in. There's individual awards for the top levels at every school, as well as awards for the top schools with the highest percentage correct or best methods. Math Kangaroo is a great individual mathematics competition. MathCounts is definitely the most known competition, I believe. That with the AMCs are probably known better than any of the other math competitions. All right. Then we have the HMMT. So this is a college-driven math competition. So the HMMT is one of the largest high school competitions in the world for mathematics. And it is one that I've just recently started learning more and more about. It's something that I'm going to include my team at the Marian Catholic High School. So this competition is through I'm sorry about that. It's the Harvard Math Competition. So this is a fantastic one that's held in November and February every year. In February, we do it at MIT. In November, we do it at Harvard. So the last competition was February for MIT. Then Harvard will have their November competition this year. Then the problem list here is pretty fun because it's just going through this idea of algebra and number theory, which are some of my favorite classes to teach, as well as doing combinations, which is like a type of counting math, and then geometry. So these different problems come together to make a pretty challenging test of just 10 questions per topic. All right. Let's go ahead and move to my favorite math competitions, which is the AMC 8, 10, 12, and the AIME. The AMC 8 is a great beginner competition, and that's what we're talking about today. This is, well, that's the favorite one I teach. This is for middle school students. It's an introduction to the first level of like thinking about math in competition form, like doing this amazing problem solving. There's so many different solutions for every problem. And it uses all the skills you've learned in a ton of different areas come together to answer these. There's 25 questions. They get progressively harder as you go through the test. We're going to look at 2 questions from this year's AMC 8 in class. Then the AMC 10 and 12, that progressively gets higher. Then there's the AIME. The AIME is an invitational math competition. You have to score very well on the AMC 12 or AMC 10 to be invited to the AIME. So, oh, I see one of our students did get accepted into the AIME at one point. That's very good. Yeah. Doing well on the AMC 10 does take quite a bit of work, but there's fewer of the topics get focused on. So I did see that someone said they did better on the AMC 10 than they did on the AMC 8. That's because the AMC 8 has such a wide range of topics that you'll be going through. And that's why I think preparing for the AMC 8 is the best way to start. If you take a look at our beginner math competition topics, we break up preparing for math competitions into 3 different classes. So in part 1, we're going through the beginning set of the math skills you'll need. This pattern recognition inside of part A is amazing. It's one of the most useful parts for any of these tests because finding that pattern is one of the key skills for answering these questions. Then we need also our logical reasoning, which is putting together the question in a way that makes sense, are what's being asked, how's it being asked, how do I need to frame my answer? Knowing how to operate with your fractions in a way that's faster is super important because on many of these tests, there's no calculator. On the AMC 8, there's no calculator. You're allowed a piece of scratch paper. That's it. Knowing your evens and odds really breaks down these problems and helps you cut so much time off of all your questions. Knowing how to transform an equation, how to change a complicated equation into a basic one, look at how that works, then expand it back out is one of our key skills. And it's actually a skill I use throughout all of college math, so I didn't have to memorize so many equations. And we go through that in our classes. Knowing how integers work. I know we think integers, well, that's our whole numbers, right? They just count up and down. We have negative and positive integers, but there's rules about integers, especially the prime factorization of these integers. When we start thinking about those rules and how they apply, it may not give us the immediate correct answer, but knowing these rules helps us get rid of answers. And in the AMC 8, that's wonderful because this is a multiple choice test. If you have a multiple choice test and you get rid of 2 of the answers right away by just knowing your rules of integers, now you're left with just 2 choices left. And it's easy to just do a guess and check method at that point. Plug it in, find out which one's right or wrong. All right. And then we continue learning with our counting techniques. We will, in part B, we do counting techniques. We talk more about factors, our prime numbers, rates, ratios. These are really the meat of getting through your competitions, is knowing these skills. Part A is giving you the basics you need. Part B is this huge jump to the exact skills that you required. It's also very similar to our number theory course. Okay. Then in part C, this is the advanced, the specifics. that you need for the test. These are things that if you don't know these, you're not going to do fantastic on the test. If you know these relationships, you're going to be going through it much, much better. All right. Now, I talked earlier about how I have my own method I do math with. This is not just the method I teach with. This is the method I use. I take on a couple of big problems every year, usually partner with a city. Lately, I've been partnering with the city of Blue Island. And we've been working with the Blue Island Forestry Board, which actually just today, they did give me a position on the Forestry Board. The mayor announced I've been appointed to the Forestry Board for the next 3 years. So I'll be doing even more fun math projects with them. So what we did is we found the mathematical center of the city and we built a mathematical representation of the city. By doing this, we were able to apply for grants, and I had high school students work with me to develop these programs. What we do is we approach the problem by doing 3 read-throughs or 3 ways to look at it. The first way we look at something is we say, what is the situation? When you have a story problem in front of you, you just read through it to try to get a general picture of what's going on. Sometimes I jokingly call this the, huh. So that's the noise you're going to make after you read the problem the first time. You're like, huh, okay, that's a problem. I have an idea of what's going on. The second time we read through, we're asking the question, what is the relationship? I have a lot of information. I have a lot of things they've given me. How are the things they've given me, they've told me about this problem related? So I also sometimes call this one the givens. So the information that just is given in the problem that I don't need to work for, that they just tell me. I write that down and I write down the relationship of it. Next, the most important read through, I'd say, we save for last, what is being asked? What's the question? I'm sure a lot of our students today have gone through, done a ton of work in a math problem just to find out that the question was actually way easier than they thought it'd be. Sometimes we do too much work and we think we know the question because there's multi-steps in these problems. But it's actually just asking one part of these steps. And there's steps we can jump and skip entirely. So by first looking at the problem and saying, what's our situation, get a picture of what's going on, find the relationships, look at the given information and how it's related to each other, and then ask, what is the question? I've read through the problem 3 times. I haven't missed any part of it after I read 3 times. I know what's going on. I usually will have a small picture built by this point. I'll have some information listed down on the paper, and I know exactly what I should be asking. Okay, let's take a look at an example of this. Let's go through and do a 3 reads problem here. In this question, let's do what's the situation first. 5 lamps are arranged in a row as shown in the figure below. Each lamp has its own switch. All 5 lamps, A, B, C, D, and E, are now off. Ben starts to turn each switch from A to E, and he repeats this pattern, always from A to E in that order, until he switches 2012 times. At the end, which lamps are finally on? Okay, we've read through for our situation. Now we need to highlight what's going on here. The figure below, the situation's all about this picture. Perfect. Each of these have switches. Switches have on and off. All right. They all start as off. Okay, I'm getting the situation down. When I turn them, I go from A to E. All right, so I'm going left to right here. I'm switching them 2012 times. Where are they? Finally. Finally means at the end. Make sure we understand what the different math terms mean in our first read through the situation. Okay. Now that I know our situation, I'm ready to read through again to find the relationship. So as I read through, 5 lamps are arranged in a row as shown in the figure below. Each lamp has its own switch. All 5 lamps, A, B, C, D, and E, are now off. Ben starts to turn each switch from A to E, and he repeats the pattern, always from A to E in order, until he turns the switches 2012 times. Which lamps are on finally? Or which lamps are on at the end? When I'm doing the relationship, this is a great time for us to write down the most important given information and to make a table. A table, a picture, something to help me get an idea of what's happening. Everything starts off. I have my table built. When I start turning them on, number one, I turn on. Well, number two, I would turn on. I'm working through the problem a little bit at a time, and I have an idea of what's happening after I run through 5 times. Well, now that I've built one row of this chart, it's pretty simple to see what the next row will be. I'm on for these 5 times. Number 6 will be off. So will all of them plus 5. So I next group, those will be off. My 6 through 10 are all turned off. Okay. So now I have a really good idea of what's going on. Let's try to build a pattern here. Now, they've already have this on-off pattern, but that's not quite good enough. There's way too much going on there. I want a much more simple pattern. I want to build that pattern by counting my rows. By counting my rows, I know which rows are on and which rows are off. I know that row 3 is going to be on. Row 4 is going to be off. So now I've built a relationship with evens and odds. Okay. Now it's time to read one more time and check what is being asked. 5 lamps are arranged in a row as shown in the figure below. Each lamp has its own switch. All 5 lamps, A, B, C, D, and E, are now off. Ben starts to turn each switch from A to E. He repeats the pattern always from A to E in order until he switches 2012 times. Which lamps are on at the end? The question's being asked, what lamps are turned on after 2012 switches? Okay. So I asked the question and I want to think, what kind of problem is this? This is a pattern recognition problem. Our pattern recognition problems can be broken down into 4 types: growing patterns, sequence patterns, repeating patterns, and geometric patterns. Each type of pattern has a different kind of solution or a different way we can go through it. This one is actually 2 types of patterns. I have a growing sequence and a repeating pattern. So odd rows are on, even rows are off. If I'm switching 2012 times, then which ones are going to be on? How many rows are on? How many rows are off? How many rows are there total? 2012, I'm going to round that up to 2015. 2015 divided by 5 gives me 403. 403, here's my row. 403 is odd. They're all going to be on to start with. But then, well, they're all going to be on at the end, I should say. But then I go through and I'm like, well, I only got to number 2012. So I've only switched on 2011 and 2012. C, D, and E are all off. A and B are on. This is one method to solve this problem. Now, this is not the exact speed we'd solve it with on the test. That problem took a while, this method. But this is how we teach the initial method to get the students thinking about, okay, how can I break this down? What is my pattern? How does my pattern work? Now, we're going to jump ahead and we're going to take a look at some current problems. Problem 22 and 25 from this year's AMC 8. Okay. Our first problem, 22, a roll of tape is 4 inches in diameter wrapped around a ring that's 2 inches in diameter. A cross section of the tape is shown in the figure below. The tape is 0.015 inches thick. If the tape is completely unrolled, how long would it be? Round your answer to the nearest 100 inches. Okay, so this is giving me a lot of information. Let's talk about this relationship first. I have my tape. My tape's diameter is 4 inches. It's wrapped around a ring that's 2 inches. Okay, so I have an idea of my picture so far. I have the 4-inch diameter, which they give me right here. I have my 2-inch inside. That's just going to be missing from our whole problem here. That's no tape inside there. And I know that I'm wrapping the tape around and I want to know the total length that's going on. This is what I know from my first read through, understanding the situation. All right, the next one, let's read and find our given information or the relationships. All right, I have the 2-inch diameter inside. Our tape is around a 4-inch diameter, big circle. It's wrapped around a ring that's 2 inches. The cross section is shown below. The tape is 0.015 inches thick. I completely unroll the tape. How long would it be? So I guess what they're really asking is, well, the relationship we're looking at here is how thick is this divided by my 0.015. That's not too hard to figure out, I think. Next, we read through and double check we know the question. A roll of tape is 4 inches in diameter, wrapped around a ring that's 2 inches in diameter. The cross section of the tape is shown in the figure below. The tape is 0.015 inches thick. If the tape is completely unrolled, approximately how long would it be? Round your answer to the nearest 100 inches. The question just got a little bit more complicated. When I was reading through with the relationships, I was thinking, okay, well, it's this thickness divided by that number. But that would not give me my answer. That would tell me how many rings of tape there are. Each ring of tape gets progressively larger as it goes further out. So this information, while very, very useful, is not necessarily going to give me my complete answer. What the question's being asked is how long is this tape when totally stretched out? So let's take a look at the information we know. I know that my circumference here, oh, one sec while my computer loads. There we go. All right. I know that my circumference of the tape I'm looking at is actually going to just be the shaded region, right? I'm looking at the area in there, and the circumference is going to be as it can get smaller and smaller. But I can think about that as an average circumference. I have this 4-inch circle and this 2-inch circle on the inside. If I take the largest circle added to the smallest circle's circumference, that will equal the second largest circle added to the second smallest circle's circumference. And I can keep going through that. This is a type of solution we'd learn in counting. So this problem is using geometry where we're looking at the area and circumference, but it's also using counting to help us get an idea of a faster way to solve it. So I actually don't need to find the circumference of every circle. If I'm looking at the outside circle, the inside circle, the small one and the big one, and I keep pairing them up, well, I can actually just look at the average circumference. The largest one, the large circumference, is 4 inches. The small one is 2 inches. So the average is 3 inches. So this is the circumference I want to work with. I'm going to have a circumference of 3 inches as my average. Well, now if I think about circumference, that's 2 pi r. Well, I'm looking at my diameter as 3 inches for the average. So it's just going to be 3 pi times the number of circles. The number of circles we're going to solve using this relationship we found earlier. This is 1 inch. So now we have 1 divided by 0.015. 1 divided by 0.015 equals 66. Pi's 3.14, but this is an approximation problem, so we're probably just going to stick around with 3. We're going to try to get pretty close. That's the beauty of it. It says approximate. So when I approximate, I'm not trying to find my exact answer. I don't need to be super exact. And I'm also not allowed a calculator. So messing around with my approximations is going to be enough for us. Okay. So now I have my 3 pi times my 66 layers. 66 times 3 is about 200. 200 times pi is going to be around 600. So it's much larger than 300, much smaller than 1200, 1500, or 1800. So my answer is 600. This problem uses what we learned in class A about logic, in our first set of classes with logic, about eliminating answer choices that don't make sense and using approximation to help you find an answer faster. It uses counting to come up with a way to find the average circumference, so I don't need to think about every single circle. And it uses geometry, where we're talking about our circumferences, we're talking about area, and we're trying to break down with the thickness of these layers. When you put this together, you don't need to find exact answers anymore. You can eliminate wrong answers. That is it for my part of the presentation today. Do we have any questions?
Thank you so much, Mr. Brian. I really, really enjoy it. I hope I have you when I were in the middle school, because math is definitely not my forte. But I really enjoy you teaching the problem. I hope the kids as well, and I hope parents as well. So yeah, any questions for Mr. Brian while I show this last page? So we are having our part 1 of this AMC8 prep, and we are using the AOPS competition math for middle school. So if you want to join the class, anyone who joined today's workshop will get an extra 5% discount. So take your chances, and parents and students, scan the barcode and join the class. If you want me to send you individual links, contact me so I can send you the individual link as well. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions. If no questions, then we'll close our today's workshop. I really appreciate everyone who participate, and we have different WeChat group. One group is especially for AMC8 prep, and this year we have 35 students take the AMC8 through pyramid. I think 6 of them got the honor roll, and 4 of them got the achievement a certificate, because they are sixth grader and younger, and who got 15 questions right. So congratulations for all the students who have participated in AMC8 and MathCount. And this year we have a great coming out from the Naperville Middle School, Kennedy School, really, really, great news. So hopefully more and more coming from our pyramid kids will get good job, in taking the competitions. But thank you again, Mr. Brian. It looks like we don't have any other questions. So bye-bye, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.